Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to be doing another horrific 5 mask Orgrimmar run, and I'll be going over some tips and tricks on what to look out for and just general routes and so forth. So you see here I'm pulling them to the same corner I did in my last video and grouping them up so I can AoE them down, focusing on the shield bearer here. He does a cone stun, so you want to watch out for that when he starts casting that. So if you're in front of him while he's casting his stun, you will get stunned, and it'll be pretty bad, especially with 5 masks. These totems that these shamans place right here, they can become a problem if you have a bunch of corruption pools over them. And then they can also be your greatest ally, actually. So if you're away from the totem and you've got a bunch of pools down and you're running out of room, it may just save your life and pull you out of those pools. So just a tip to keep in mind: if you do need an escape route, you can actually use those. Just remember that if you get snared or any kind of movement impairing effect, it needs to be immediately removed. That way it's not going to explode on you. Once again, you always want to focus on these dominators. That way, they're not stunning you for 6 seconds and you're standing in bad or getting blown up by void crashes and so forth. On this mini boss, when he starts casting visceral fluid, you want to immediately start side strafing. If you try to run out of it, you will get clipped and it will do a lot of corruption damage, and your sanity, I think it drops your sanity by like 35 or 40. So you want really want to stay out of that. This boss is fairly simple. Anytime he starts casting any of his abilities, you just side strafe. You want to stay within his hitbox. He will spawn orbs just like this on the outside, and it's pretty easy to avoid. You just stay on the inside of him and just strafe around. And like I said, anytime he casts something, you just scooch on out of it. Over here in the Valley of Spirits, when you're clearing these ads, you always want to focus on the casters that cast Mental Assault. You always want to interrupt it or stun it because it will do insanity damage. So that taking that out of the equation means you will have more sanity for the boss encounters. So it's a big thing, and they always tend to cast it. Let them cast it as long as possible before you stun them or interrupt it.
In times of need, this is what most insurance sounds like.
Thank you for holding. What's your policy number?
But when you have coverage from AAA, you've got insurance with 3 A's. And that sounds like this.
Thank you for calling AAA. Is everyone okay?
So does your insurance sound like insurance? Or does it sound like insurance with AAA? A brand that's been helping members for over 100 years. Visit AAA.com/insurance for a free quote on auto and home coverage.
This is probably the easiest boss in Horrific Visions. You just have to avoid these crashing waves, and once he does your hopelessness, you just run and grab the orb and rinse repeat. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. This boss can be a little challenging as melee with his Void Torrent. Uh, if you have hot feet, I would highly recommend using that as an escape technique. Use it, let it build up, stay still, and use it to jump out quickly and get as far away from him as possible, but not too far. That way you can re-engage as soon as he's done casting it and DPS his bubble down. So, just like I did here, use it to jump out, and then as soon as it's done, run back in and blast him and pop that bubble. When engaging Misha, she will do an ability called Retching. Uh, I usually just take this as it doesn't do a lot of damage and just be ready to cast the spell as soon as possible since it is a poison. That way you don't get any poison ticks. Normally kings and other mitigations from Azerite armor from the defenses will basically just soak that damage when she does it. So having that cleanse ready to go as soon as it pops is easy. Rexar. Um, he's probably the most annoying boss encounter, even though it's fairly simple. His mechanics just put out so much damage against your sanity. It's insane. So really, the best thing to do is to stay still and just slowly beat him down until each boar comes out, and just immediately switch to it and just blast it. Just kill him, interrupt him, stun him, uh, burst them down as fast as possible. Rexart really doesn't do that much damage to you, like auto attack wise. So the biggest problem is the boars casting their quills, and if you DPS him down too quick, he'll just spawn every single boar, and they'll just bum rush you, and you can get knocked back into traps, into pools, and it's just not a good time. It's pretty bad. And like you see here, I just stepped in a trap. That's a 4-second stun, so that's not good, especially during this phase. Once Rexar gets down to about 30% health, he will start spawning these voidlings, and it's basically just a moving gauntlet at this point. And with the corruption that you have on that right now, you're getting that slow every time you move, so it's a big negative when it comes to this part of the fight. So the more sanity you have before you get to this phase of the fight is best. As you see there, I just barely made it. In my last video, I actually wiped on it because I wasn't focusing hard enough on what I was doing, and I was trying to do a live commentate. So it's probably one of the more active fights, I would say. There's a lot going on, so you gotta be watching everything and really just focus on that fight itself because of the amount of insanity damage it does to you. It's very easy to get either killed or lose your sanity, all of your sanity, in just that one fight. So it's definitely, I think, the hardest boss in here just because of that.
I've been around this vicious life too long to be neglecting the truth. I'm getting closer and I'm fully armed. I'm about to hunt you down through the big black hole right behind you, and I'm about to cut your wings away. 'Cause I've been finding out where you've broken in, and I will take you out when I close you in. I'm killing them all, I put my soul on the line. I've cured my sins that I committed in life. I've flown them all and I'll be bringing.
Now every time I engage Thrall, I always pop my last orb, or just an orb in general. That way I can just sit there and DPS down these boars even if they hit me with quills. And I tend to use my flash of light to mitigate the damage I do, since I won't necessarily be taking insanity damage because I'm still in my orb. So it's just one of the better ways to keep most of your insanity intact and basically just coast through the entire fight. His mechanics really aren't that difficult when he has all 5 abilities, so it's just more or less just being aware of where you're standing, and when you need to move to the side and get out of his line of fire, and standing in your power pools if you need that extra damage, which typically you do. If it's in a pool, I would not advise going into the pool and taking that extra sanity damage, because you can take a lot of sanity damage in this fight if you're not standing in the right area. So that's something to always keep in mind when you're doing this fight. didn't get quite an upgrade from this run, but it's always nice to have a 470 piece of gear with corruption on it, no matter what it is. I usually tend to keep as many pieces of gear as possible for multiple combinations, just in case. That way, you're making sure you're getting optimal damage, and you might get a piece that's even 460 if you do 4 masks. That might actually be better than a 470 piece that just has a bad corruption on it, or just you know stats you don't necessarily need. So that's always something to think about when you're running these. So hey guys, thanks again for joining me on this adventure. I hope you got a lot of tips out of this, and hopefully it'll help you on your journey through 5 masks and horrific visions. I will be doing a Stormwind one here very soon to help you out as well. If you like my content, though, drop that like, drop that subscribe, hit that bell. It'll let you know when I've got a new video out. And it just keeps me, informed that you guys actually like this content and that I should keep doing content like this. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks. Bye.